B'Shis Harav, B'Shis the guest of honors, and on behalf of myself and my co-chairman, Carl Weisstuck, would like to wish you a beautiful evening and also to thank you for making this Simcha socially a success and also financially. But before we go on with the program, I would like to mention a few names here who had a lot to do with the journal and the dinner. Just a minute, hold on. First, I would like to thank Sam Swipel because he was always ready and able to do anything, whatever was required. Delivery, pickups, everything in the ship. Thank you so much. And to the staff of the office, Mrs. Rivka Pashkas and Sam Diane. Wonderful job. And last but not least, Morty Chrein. If it wasn't for Morty Chrein, it wouldn't have been possible to bring out the journal tonight, because he did it single-handedly. Thank you, Morty. May you continue for many, many years in good health. And to Dr. Schulmans, I have to admit to you that in the beginning, when we wanted you to guest of honor, I was talking it over with Mr. Carl Weislich, and we thought it was like a dream. However, to fulfill this dream, we made sure that we took along some heavyweights. And we took along Dr. Just a minute. We took along, let's go, Ben C. Miller and Rabbi Snow. So thank you again for accepting and for not saying no. Have a nice evening, and I give it over now to our chairman of the evening, chairman of the board, Mr. Jack Weinstein.
You weren't supposed to say all those things, you know that.
Oh, 2 minutes.
I hope everyone will pay attention, because I holler if you don't pay attention. Chazan Ben Zion Miller will now lead us in the singing of Hatikva and the Star Spangled Banner.
Were so gay.
Buddy, how are you? How are you?
Right,
Buddy?
yourself. What are you
You want
doing
this
here?
job? Not a lot. I'm doing. What am I doing? I got no place else to go.
That's good.
Okay.
Everything all right? Everything-
Wonderful, wonderful. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call on one of our co-presidents, Sam Zweibel, who will make the motzi, wherever Sam is. Here he comes. Please pay attention. He's practiced. Right here. Sam. Paper towels. Everything. Hold on. There's paper towels. Don't stab yourself. Hey, come over here. There you go. They'll cut it up.
Vorher hat du den neue Reine Melech Olam Amoitze Lechem bin Hohet.
Amen.
Ik myself.
Take it back to your wife. I have an important announcement. Even though Marty stole a little bit of my thunder, I feel that it's only right that I mention how grateful the officers and the members of the board are to the two people to whom we owe a great debt of gratitude for all the work that they have done in not just the last couple of weeks, but during the course of the entire year. It really took a lot of work on the part of these two guys, who I'm proud to say are my friends. After I say this, they may not be my friends, but in any event, they're two great guys, they're my friends, they're devoted members of the shul, and it's because of their tremendous effort that this affair is as nice and as successful as it is. And that's Carl Weistuck and Marty Fruchter, and join me. We also have a number of dignitaries with us this evening, and I would like to welcome them from the podium. One is Rabbi Pollack, and we have Judge, and we're fortunate to have two judges, not one, but we have two. Judge Sal Handler, and also Judge Leon Ruchesman. And I also want to welcome somebody who hasn't come to our dinners for a while, but a long-time devoted member of Young Israel and Bethel, was totally involved in the shul, and at one time served as Gabbai, and that's Moish Semmel, and of course his wife Susie. Now, ladies and gentlemen, on the program, so that we give you a little respite now, we're going to have the caterer serve the soup, after which we'll have a short speaking program, and I really mean it will be short.
It was a quiet.
Say something?
Video.
It's a very...
Lost up to the shoulders under the cat.
All of us, what do we do?
You got me?
Away very nicely. She tells him everything and so definitely.
Pay for it right outside.
Right. Yeah, right. Go to see a line. I made a line. They made a mistake. They made a mistake. Right here, they made the line over here. I think you want to wait for the guests to come
Ladies and gentlemen, please quiet down a little. We have a very short speaking program, and if we have the cooperation of everyone that is here, we will be able to go through the program in a nice, orderly manner, which will please everyone. I want to introduce the man that I call chairman, and that's Morty Klein, because he is the chairman. Morty Klein.
Before I continue with the few words I prepared to say, I must make this Agdama. Because Thursday night, when we were here in this hall with the par excellence chairman, Marty Fruchter, and Carl Weisduck, to review some of the settings and the table arrangements, I went home, and about 15, 20 minutes later, I received the sad news that our, of course, Akova awardee, Eric Katz, lost his sister. And I was extremely shocked, and I was at a loss for words at that particular time. However, I must say, because that's the way I felt then, and I just want to express myself here tonight. I called Marty up and I said, Marty, I don't know if I want to continue with the speech. I feel very uncomfortable speaking about someone who won't be present tonight. And then, well, shortly after, about an hour and a half later, Rabbi Snow called me up and he explained to me halachically how Mrs. Katz could attend and her children could attend with her, of course not joining in the festivities, but there to receive the award which was to be given to Mr. and Mrs. Aaron Katz, devoted and dedicated people of our shul for over 50 years and still continuing today. And he said, Morty, you could say the words that you prepared to say. And so now I'm going to say the few words that I had prepared to say for them. Well, first let me address Moreno Rabbeinu Rabbi Moshe Snow, our guests of honor, Dr. Robert and Susan Schulman, officers, distinguished guests as well, officers and members, and ladies and gentlemen. It is my privilege and pleasure to speak tonight in behalf of Aaron and Olga Katz, the Hakaras Hatov awardees. For one thing, Aaron and I are both of the same tribe. Moshe, that's me, and Aaron Cohen were both of the same Shevet Levi. So there is at the outset is a kinship. However, our association and membership in Young Israel goes back for at least 50 years. Aaron was always very active in shul activities and functions, and he was especially involved in the activities of the Young Israel Welfare Group. Together with Abe Katz, Olav Shalom, they ran the dutiful responsibilities associated with that group. As I think back, I can recall the golden anniversary of the Welfare Group held in 1984, and it was held at the Congregation Bethel, where I acted as Toastmaster, and where Ivry Sadlauer, sitting with me tonight at the table, will remember the occasion, because he was then the first vice president of the Welfare Group. At some time, or at that time after the merger, the Welfare Group became an adjunct of Young Israel Bethel, and it was at that time that Aaron took over the full responsibility, serving as their mainstay and full-time leader. He possesses the acumen, the wisdom, accuracy, and compassion to handle that responsible position, which he continues to perform with efficiency until this very day. I can tell you that Olga, his wife, gets a hearty yasher koach, for she is most helpful with Aaron, working with him, along with him, in the work of the Young Israel Welfare Group. When we were seeking someone to fill the position of Gabbai, we looked no further, for Aaron was the logical choice. We were very appreciative when Aaron consented to take over with this very responsible and sensitive assignment. We knew Aaron would fill this important position with the utmost efficiency. He possesses all the qualifications: competent, knowledgeable, tactful, respectful. And the greatest mala is that he is beloved by all the congregants. He is the perfect gentleman. In all situations, to say it in his words, I repeat his message in the journal. As Gabbai of our beloved shul, I am intimately involved with all our members. I try to give kavod to all the mispalalim, as I believe everyone should be treated as an individual. It is most difficult to satisfy everyone's needs. However, I certainly try to do just that. In seeking the close characterization of the honoree, I turned to chapter 15 of the Psalms, which some entitle as Hashem's gentleman. It is descriptive of the Hebraic ideal of human character, being straightforward in his dealings in words and sincerity, and being ethically right. Holer Tomim ufoel tzedek v'diber emes bilvavo. He walks upright and works with righteousness and speaks the truth which comes from the heart. At this time, I will ask Mrs. Katz and our son Moshe to please phone forward to the dais. Sorry, Harvey, so we'll leave it over here. It's a beautiful tray with the challah tray with the sakon, and it's engraved on the back. I think I can manage to read it. Presented to Mrs. Aaron Katz, Hakaras Atov awardees, Young Israel Bethel, December 17, 2000, Kov Kislev, Tovshin Samach Aleph. May I just add this? The light is very poor and the typing is very light. That's why I was hesitating. We want to wish Aaron and Olga Katz good health and only simchas and the future only besuros tovos for many, many long years with nachas from their children here in the United States, and for those, the children and grandchildren, as well as here and in Eretz Yisrael, for which they just came back from a visit. I can say to them, to Mazel Tov to the family, and only many, only simchas in the future.
Just hold it up. Take a picture. Stand.
Stay there a minute.
Their son Moshe would like to say a few words.
No, I don't mind.
Shusterov, Paula, everyone. I want to thank Mr. Crane for the kind words that you said for my father. My father was not able to make it now. Okay.
Can I raise this?
No,
I think so.
that's fine.
How's that? That better?
Okay.
Try it.
Thank you. My father, when Young Israel asked to honor him, my father was hesitant about being honored. He was uncomfortable with being honored. Young Israel wanted to honor him, and he duly deserves it. So, in the way Hashem made some things work out, Young Israel got to honor my father, and my father, in a way, didn't have to be honored by not being here. And in a certain sense, we know Rashi says, "Mixus shracha b'fanav kula shlo b'fanav." In front of a person, you can only say part of his praise. When he's not here, you could say more of a praise. So in a certain sense, we could do a better job of honoring my father now by him, even though he's not here. I first wanted to give my father's speech that my mother had made up. My father wanted to thank Mr. Chaim for the kind words that he said, and he wanted to thank Young Israel Bethel for honoring him He wants to thank everyone for the patience and assistance in helping him do his job. That's what my father wanted to say. And then now I wanted to say a few words of what Young Israel means to my father. I've seen Father Kainahara over the years, many years has done Young Israel. There are three things that he always enjoyed about Young Israel. He always enjoyed the people in Young Israel. You know, he always considered them as friends. He enjoyed going to shul just to, to be with the people. He enjoyed very much the davening, always, was a very menschlich davening, very decorum, was very, they daven like you're supposed to daven. He enjoyed the chazan. He always used to come back and say how well the chazan davens. And he always, over the years, used to enjoy the shiurim that Young Israel always gave, whether it was Rabbi Schwartz, whether it was Rabbi Shor, Olav Shalom, or Rabbi Snow. He always used to come back and say, how wonderful, how well they tied everything together, and how amazing the shiurim was. So my father always appreciated what Young Israel was, and to him, he had a certain attachment to it. He had a commitment that he wanted to give to Young Israel, because he knew what he appreciated what they were, and this was his attachment to them, and he wanted to try his best to make sure that the shul was the way a shul was supposed to do, and that's why he was always, over the years, so devoted. And just to mention, of course, it took my mother also to help him to make sure that he was able to go to shul, he was able to be there. I remember as a kid when Young Israel, at some point, when the days were short and it was hard to find a minyan during the week, at some times, in the winter days, so he used to have to stand outside and schlep people in. So I used to ask my father, why bother? There's so many shuls in Borough Park. It's it's not hard to go someplace to minyan. But to my father, that wasn't a question. This is where he wanted to devote himself, where he wanted to make sure that there was a shul that had a minyan all the time, that davened, that it functioned properly. So I want to thank Young Israel for honoring him. I want to thank everyone for honoring him, and I want to wish everyone they should only have bracha, hatzlacha, it's a longer yorin, and should only have simchas together.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
The next speaker will be Rabbi Snow.
Yeah, he's going to say a few words.
Mr. Chairman, honored guests of honor, Choshev Rabbanim, this is the first time in the 12 years that the Young Israel Bethel of Borough Park has been one shul that we are not graced with the presence of Harav Yisrael Eliezer Shor Zecher Tzaddik Livrocha. I thought it was important to mention that because the imprimatur of the Rav on our shul left us feeling as an important place. And now that importance has to come from other sources. Those sources include all the Klei Kodesh that are involved in the shul, of course, but it also comes from you. And we hope and pray that our shul will be able to continue in the fine tradition with which he endowed it. Tonight's gathering and the purpose of my being here right now to say words of tribute and honor to our guests of honor tonight presents me with three difficulties. First, Dr. Robert and Dr. Susan Schulman do not like to be praised. They are humble people. Secondly, the Chafetz Chaim says in his Shmiras HaLashon that it's important to be careful how you praise a person in public, especially a public figure, because it's possible that someone might not agree completely with what you're saying, and it might spur them to say, it's not so hot. I don't think that's the case in the case of our honorees, but I have to be cautious about the Chafetz Chaim's words. And thirdly, as was mentioned so beautifully a moment ago by Moshe Katz in the place of, when he accepted the honor in place of his father, it's only miksatz shvocha b'fonov. It's only a little bit of the praise in front of the person. So we're a little bit limited. And nevertheless, there is what to say. In yesterday's Sedra, when we read those famous words at the very beginning of the Sedra that so many commentators talk about, Yaakov sending a message to Lavan, to Esav, and he's saying to Esav, Im Lavan garti, I lived with Lavan. So Rashi, famous Rashi. Rashi comments, why did he tell him, I lived with Lavan? What is he trying to say? Rashi says, Im Lavan garti, I lived with Lavan, v'taryag mitzvos shamarti, and I kept all 613 commandments. Why is Yaakov telling this to Esav? What's his goal? What's his purpose? There are many interpretations, and we don't have time to go through all of them. But one of the great things about the Jewish people is their ability to synthesize the work ethic, working in an alien environment, going to school, going to work in a non-Jewish venue, and maintaining the principles of Taryag Mitzvah Shamarti. The emphasis here in the Rashi, you see, has to be on Im Lavan, with my living with Lavan, even when I lived and had to work hard to make my living and to make my mark, to get involved in the pursuit of my parnasa. And whatever it is I chose, I want you to know that I, and if you'll pardon the use of this word, I injected into it Taryag Mitzvah Shamarti. In a sense, that is exactly at the highest level what Dr. Robert and Dr. Susan Schulman do on a regular basis. They are involved in the pursuit of perhaps one of the most exalted professions in the secular world, and constantly injecting and infusing not only the medicines that are necessary, but the Taryag Mitzvot Shamarti, the 613 commandments, in all that they do. And you have to know that there are many aspects of halacha that are involved in medicine. Just take a look at the Sfarim that are written on Jewish law and medicine, and you'll have an indication of how difficult some of the shilas that come up are. Let me just give you one example of how sensitive a doctor has to be in terms of halacha. And I'm going to show you where it applies in this case. Do you know there's an interesting question? In fact, it's brought down in the Sefer Nishmas Avraham, which was written by Rabbi Dr. Avraham, Sofer Avraham, who is actually going to be one of our guests, courtesy of Dr. Shulman, in just 2 weeks to lecture in our shul. But he raised an interesting question. We all know, let's say a Jew and a non-Jew have a partnership. So there are difficult problems that come up in a relationship to working on Shabbos. Let's say there's a Jewish doctor, and the Jewish doctor is on call on Shabbos, and there's a non-Jewish doctor who is on call on Sunday. Is it proper for the Jewish doctor to say to the non-Jewish doctor, let's switch. I'll take your rounds on Sunday, you take my rounds on Saturday, I'll get my day of rest, and we'll both be happy. So obviously, there's no question, it's exactly what you should do. But a shaila came up to Rav Moshe as follows. Rav Moshe Feinstein Zatzal was presented with the following. You are a religious doctor. You are a Shomer Shabbos doctor. And the other person who has duty on Sunday while you have it on Shabbos, the person who has duty on Sunday is a Jewish doctor who is non-observant of the commandments. He's not a Shomer Shabbos. What do you do? Should you switch with him? After all, he's also a Jew. Or should you take your rounds and do what has to be done? Interesting, the brilliance of Rav Moshe coming out over here. Rav Moshe Zatzal said, what do? You switch. Why do you switch? What happened with Lifnei Iver Lo Sitein Michshol? What happened with someone who is going to be doing Chilul Shabbos by doing the rounds on Shabbos? He says, no. When a doctor is at home and he's off on Shabbos, what's he going to be doing? He's going to be cooking. He's going to be driving. He's going to be writing. He's going to be over many Isser Chilul Shabbos D'Oraisa. What happens if you have him on rounds in the hospital? What's he going to be involved in? Helping somebody, perhaps, who's involved in Pikuach Nefesh? Taking care of somebody who maybe the only prohibition is a rabbinic prohibition? Maybe not even doing an Isser at all. You're being mizakeh him. You're doing him a big favor. You're helping the person because you're giving him the opportunity not to be over Chilul Shabbos D'Oraisa. Brilliant. So you see how sensitive you have to be as a doctor? So let me ask you, when do we daven on Friday night in the summer? We daven on Friday night in the summer, 7 o'clock. Why? Who wants to sit down to eat 9 o'clock at night, 9:30 at night? You have children at home sometimes, you have guests coming. Who wants to sit down 9:15 at night after Ma'ariv to walk home and to sit down and to eat? Do you think the Shulmans, Dr. Robert and Dr. Susan, have ever made an early Shabbos? They could do it. You know why they don't do it? Because they're sensitive to their patients. What if a patient needs me after 7 o'clock? By them, it's not Shabbos. Who is going to care for them if I'm not there? That's a sensitivity that's involved with Taryag Mitzvot Shamarti. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. A little concern about the other person. That's a lot more than just being an observant Jew. It's being a sensitive observant Jew. It's Taryag Mitzvot Shamarti. You know, my first contact was with the Shulmans. Goes back to 1971. It was a Shabbos afternoon. I don't know if Dr. Susan Shulman remembers this. It was a Shabbos afternoon. My son was complaining of pain in his stomach. I ran to him, to our doctor at that time, Dr. Shmira. I picked him up and carried him to Dr. Shmira. He couldn't walk. And he said, take him immediately to the hospital. Looks like appendicitis. Saturday, July 4th. Get a surgeon. Anyway, it worked out. Thank God, everything worked out. Baruch Hashem, Hashem was watching. The next day, when he woke up, the doctor on duty at the time was Dr. Susan Shulman. It was the first time I had ever seen a doctor wearing a stethoscope with a teddy bear on it. Right? A doll. And this gave a sensitivity to the pediatric patients that she cared for so beautifully, and that gave us a sense, don't worry, everything's going to be all right. Things are going to be fine. We're watching over him. He's going to do well. It was a sensitivity far beyond what you'd expect just in the simple terms of medicine. But it's that extra little bit of the Taryag Mitzvah Shemarti, the caring that we have. Now, you know, if there's anything that we learn from this particular election that we've just been through, and everybody's thinking about it and talking about it and wondering about it. But if there's one thing we Jews can learn, there's a big Musar Haskell that we can get from this election. And that is that when you do a mitzvah, you can't just have good intentions. You can't just do a little bit of the mitzvah. You have to see it through, right? Or the vote doesn't count, right? You can change the world. You can change the world with doing the mitzvah all the way, or just, you know, he had good intentions. Let's look up at the light and see what his intentions are. And the Supreme Court has voted intentions don't count. Only when you push it through and get the job done. And I'm not talking about the needles that get pushed through. I'm talking here about the intention to do the mitzvah in the right way. When the Shulmans do a mitzvah, it's done the right way, all the way. Not just good intentions. It's done the way it's supposed to be done, with a full heart. And that's why a little gematria in honor. Rafael Tzvi Vizlata Irle Shulman in gematria equals Rafa'eni Hashem ve'erafei me ish echod ne'eman. From someone who is faithful and does the job carefully. Tonight, we pay honor and tribute to these wonderful people who've graced our shul with their presence and have offered us the opportunity to learn and to grow and develop with them, from them, to share with them and to have their input into our shul so that we can be the beneficiaries of their expertise, their kindness, and their performance of the mitzvahs. Mazel Tov, Rafael, Dr. Robert, and Dr. Susan Shulman. Is there an inscription here? Is there an inscription? No, okay.
In case they don't like it.
Right, okay. This beautiful, for those of you who don't quite know, it's really unique. You know, you make Kiddush, and when you finish, you pour it into here, and it comes out to all the cups. It's really a beautiful, beautiful thing. Dr. Robert, Dr. Susan, please join us. On behalf of the board and presidents, the Presidium, the chairman of the evening, on behalf of myself and the entire congregation of the Young Israel Bethel of Borough Park, we're honored to present you with this beautiful Kiddush cup set, and we know that just as you are Makadesh Shmo Barabim, you will enjoy and use this beautiful Kiddush cup when you are Makadesh your Shabbos. What? I remember.
Susan, when I come to you, I want a bigger cup.
You want the big one?
Big one.
I want to thank you very much, Rabbi Snow, for your words. I want to thank the whole shul, especially I would like to thank the dinner chairman, Marty Fruchter and Carl Weistuck. They were very sensitive to our needs. I want to thank their wives, because it's the wives that allow them to do this, and I'm sure they were the powers behind the throne. It's very hard to do it without the consent of your wife. I want to wish Mazel Tov and our condolences to Mr. Aaron Katz and to Mrs. Aaron Katz on the well-deserved honor of the Hakaras HaTov. I want to thank my mother and all of our family, our friends, our relatives who came to Borough Park to grace this occasion, and it was really very helpful to us, because it's a very uncomfortable thing for Susie and I to be a guest of honor. I want to give special thanks to Rabbi and Rebbetzin Pollack, the Morid Da'asra of Shomrei Emunah and very close friends of ours for many years. We thank you for coming. The question is, how and what was I to do to respond to an honor that I didn't think I deserved? So I thought of the answer in the most tortuous, roundabout way you can imagine. I thought that you should say a Dvar Torah on the Parsha. And I was looking through the Parsha. Maybe it's from my profession, maybe it's, I don't know, but I was thinking about the death of Rachel Imenu and her burial at the roadside. And we all know why she was buried at the roadside. It was because so that allowed her to weep inconsolably for her children as they went into Gullus and as they spent their time into Gullus. And as I was thinking about that, it hit me. I remembered a drasha that Rabbi Snow gave a few months ago, where he was talking about the Navi Yirmiyahu, Perek Lamed Aleph, the part that serves as the Haftorah for the second day of Rosh Hashanah. And in that Haftorah, as you all remember, you have the famous analogy of Rachel weeping inconsolably for her children. And Rabbi Snow emphasized the last pasuk of that Haftorah, which forms a very important part in Seder Zichronos. And the part we all know, the last pasuk of the Haftarah of the second day of Rosh Hashanah is Habein Yakir Li Ephraim Im Yeled Shashuim Ki Midei Dabri Bo Zochor Eskerenu Od Al Kein Homu Me'ai Lo Rachem Arachamenu Num Hashem, which means, is Ephraim my most precious son, or a delightful child that whenever I speak of him, I remember him more and more. Therefore, my inner self yearns for him. I will surely take pity on him. These are the words of Hashem. What Rabbi Snow did during that drasha was talk about the importance of the midah of appreciation. So I have decided that Susie and I are not your guests of honor. We are chairman of the appreciation committee of the Young Israel Bethel of Borough Park. So what I would like to do is to show all of you what Susie and I appreciate about this really wonderful shul. We all suffered a loss this year with Rabbi Shor's death after serving as a Morid Da'asra of this shul for 62 years. I marveled at the way Rabbi Snow was able to take over after such a luminary. But his drushes and his shiurim are really marvelous. He is instituting new programs. He's instituting programs for Kiruv Rechokim. He has a minyan every Shabbos for children at risk, where he goes down and he speaks to these children and he's makarev them. And he helps them dealing with all the problems and the troubles that these children deal with. He is a warm and sensitive person. He is establishing a scholar in residence program. And I'll just make an advertisement that the first scholar in residence program is Professor Abraham, who is one of the most eminent people in medical ethics. And he's a mechaber of the classic Sefer Nishmas Avraham, which has just been translated by him in the English and is going to be distributed by Art Scroll, December 29th, Friday night, Parshas Miketz, 8:30. And then, after the Rav, we have our Chazan, Ben Zion Miller. Now, he is a modest, warm, caring person. He davens beautifully. He's world-renowned. He goes all over the world. His sister once told me you have to look at his passport to believe it. And everything about him is professional. I admire even the simplest of things, like his phrasing. Something as simple as singing Adon Olam. Everybody sings Adon Olam and says, B'terem kol yitzir nivra. Not him. He says, B'terem kol yitzir nivra, which is the exact way it should be to the diktuk. He has such a professional way of doing it. And who can forget the last days of Pesach this year, when he suffered a tragic loss with the death of his father, Alav Hashalom. And while he suffered this loss, he davened Shvi Shel Pesach with such feeling and such beauty and such kavanah. And the whole shul, davened Shachris, quickly went to join him at his father's levaya, and he came back and he said Yizkor and davened Musaf, all with the hurt, but knowing that that's how his father would have done, because his father was a chazan in his own right. And then this year we've had the fortune of having his son Eli join the shul. So Eli, a wonderful person in his own right, and a wonderful Baal Kriya, and a Shamus, and a Chazan Sheni. Nobody knows what to call Eli. They call him Reverend Chazan. But he himself is humble. He has a beautiful voice. And now, together with his brother Shimi and his son Mechi and some of their friends, they have formed a choir. So the davening is, I guess, just inspirational. So it is these Klei Kodesh, the rabbi, the chazan, the shamus, that Susie and I wish to thank, and which we really appreciate all your efforts. And I will leave you just with a Klei Yorker from the Parsha, because that's how I feel about this shul. We see in the Klei Yorker there's a difference between how Esav views his possessions and how Yaakov views his possessions. With Esav, he had a lot, but he says, Yesh li Rav, I have a lot, which means that he could have more. But Yaakov Avinu says, Yesh li Kol, he has everything, because he sees himself as everything. Our view of this shul is that it is a shul that Yesh li Kol, it's a shul that has everything. Susie and I thank you for bestowing us this honor, even though we really don't deserve it.
guys want to break this up because the island is waiting? At this point, friends, I'm a little confused. I don't know if we have a couple of more guests of honor or not, but there are no more gifts, so I guess there are no more guests of honor. We'll conclude with this, with Benzion Miller singing for all of us, and I'm sure that we'll all enjoy and join with him. Chazan Benzion Miller.
The Posuk Haven Yakirli Ephraim, Yela Chashuin, together with the assistance of my son, Eli, we're going to sing a composition by my father, Oliver Sholem, Haven Yakirli Ephraim. And the only main soloist is missing because he has to go to school tomorrow, so we left him home. Mechi won't be here. very much. We have a surprise guest for you here. A dear friend of the Schulmans, a dear friend of mine, a chazan in his own right, Chazan Aryeh Rendell from Queens, New York, Forest Hills, I believe. I'd like to call him up to sing a number, to join us in a number in honor of the Schulmans.
Amen.
concludes our program. Enjoy the rest of the evening, and I hope that everyone had a good time. I didn't get permission to sing some songs.